A blurry photograph of a man in a black cowl is taped to the wall. A black knife held by a tattooed hand pierces his face. "You want him dead?" Abel asked. "Dealt with," his Foundation handler replied. "Same thing," Abel said and laughed. The helicopter was ready to go outside. It was another rainy night. Almost all of them were. Plumes of black smoke billowing from factories on the far side of the city, blotting out the already darkened sky and plunging Gotham into deeper shadow. But those shadows, that darkness, were something that Twisted Underbelly had come to fear. The dark was a tool that one man used to prey on those who enacted injustice on the innocent. Every shadowy alley or flutter of movement atop a roof made every thief and murderer on the streets of Gotham take pause, think twice. Batman had been trailing the movements of suspicious cargo trucks moving in and out of the city. Some were decoys, driving around with empty containers and changing their routes every night to throw the world's greatest detective off the trail. But those were just a distraction, a theatrical deception being deployed so that the real cargo could be smuggled in undetected. Bane, a muscle-bound mercenary with the guise of a luchador, was one of Batman's most physically imposing enemies. For weeks, he had been stockpiling venom, a strength-enhancing compound somewhere in the city, and now Batman had picked up the trail. The trucks weren't distributing the venom. That was being done by a network of low-level street thugs posing as motorcycle delivery drivers. Swooping through the night sky watching one of the bikers from above, there was something else playing on the Dark Knight's mind. Recently, he'd gotten the feeling he was being watched. At first, the man under the cowl, billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne, had chalked it up to paranoia, a side effect of his nightly escapades as the Cape Crusader. His trusted butler and confidant Alfred had even suggested as much. But as the weeks rolled on, Batman couldn't shrug the notion that every move he made, every case he helped Commissioner Gordon solve, every battle with the worst of Gotham's rogues gallery, that somebody was studying him. Already Bruce had a list of potential suspects, the likely candidates for who were having him followed. So he gradually began paying them all visits as his alter ego. The larger of the city's mob families, the Falcones, denied any involvement. With their leader, Carmine Falcone, currently behind bars, the rest of the family were laying low to avoid being arrested themselves. Next came Hugo Strange, a brilliant but unhinged scientist who had become obsessed with Batman for a number of years. Bruce had worried that Hugo had finally cracked the secret of his true identity, but the despicable doctor also refused that he was the one having the Dark Knight followed. The next possible culprit on this list was Amanda Waller, a powerful and high-ranking government operative, strategic genius, and another of Batman's rivals. Known to some as the Wall, she was responsible for a number of shady covert operations that not even the Cape Crusader knew about. Waller dealt in secrets and seemed just as likely to be having Batman tailed in order to pick up dirt on the detective. But as with Strange and the Falcones, Amanda Waller denied all of the Dark Knight's claims. The heartbeat scanners built into his cowl's eyepieces confirmed that they had all been telling the truth. Shrugging the notion off, Batman focused on following the biker transporting venom across the city, silently gliding between skyscrapers with his cape. He followed the smuggler all the way to an abandoned chemical processing plant, formerly owned by a company called Ace Chemical. He suspected that was where Bane and his thugs had established a base of operations, using the plant's leftover equipment to refine the venom, the source of Bane's inhuman strength. Scanning through the rooftop with his cowl's X-ray capabilities, from a distance Batman spotted a group of armed men unloading the boxes. They were acting under the command of a larger figure, Bane himself. But then, a new unidentified figure had appeared and come striding into the building, met with hostility as Bane's forces drew their weapons. Whoever this was, he clearly wasn't with them. Suddenly, just as Batman fired his grappling hook to swing onto the roof of the chemical plant, all-out chaos erupted inside. Down below, watching intently by Batman as he slipped inside, staying concealed in the rafters, the new figure had begun violently attacking Bane and his men. The man was lean, shirtless, around his late 20s, with gray eyes and a mess of jet black hair. His entire body was covered in tattoos depicting arcane ruins and occult imagery on his olive skin. In his hands had appeared a pair of sharp black blades, seemingly from nowhere. To some, he was Ban Adam, the Butcher of the West, the great trader and first sword of Davon. But to the ones that had sent him there, he was SCP-076-2, Abel. He charged towards the group of thugs as they opened fire, their bullets missing as Abel moved with incredible speed. With a strong upward swing of both his swords, he cleaved the nearest two mercenaries' weapons into broken pieces, as if their guns were made of plastic, not metal. Abel brought both swords slicking downwards, felling both men simultaneously. Another nearby turned and ran, only to be caught by one of Abel's blades as the barbaric warrior hurled it through the air. Watching from above, Batman was taken aback. It was rare for him to be so alarmed by a display of violence, especially given he had devoted his life to crime fighting. But the figure below was taking on Bane's men single-handedly, with such speed and aggression that it gave the Caped Crusader pause. As much as he abhorred killing, Batman held back to observe this new adversary, as Abel squared up against Bane himself. The luchador charged at him with the unbridled rage of a snarling feral animal, while Abel leaped into battle with equal ferocity. His hand reached into a tiny dimensional rift, a hole in space out from which he retrieved an extra weapon that he swung directly at Bane's head. The imposing muscle monster caught the blade in his huge hand, blocking the blow. He lifted Abel off the ground, his own hand gripping the sword by its hilt, and was about to deliver a crippling punch that would have sent the barbarian flying. That is, had he not slipped another sword seemingly out of thin air and used it to slice through the blade that Bane had in his grip. Batman had only ever seen combatants with Abel's level of fighting prowess among the ranks of the Court of Owls and League of Assassins, ancient orders of killers who operated in secret. Maybe this barbaric fighter was part of such an organization. Maybe Abel had been watching him. The detective watched and pondered over possible connections to Ra's al Ghul, Talon, and even Azrael as Abel took on the mountainous mercenary. He had ducked out of the way of an oncoming swipe, rolling between the wrestler's legs in an open stance. Having outflanked Bane before he had a chance to turn around and face him, Abel jumped outwards, a pair of his black reflective swords in hand. Slashing through both the air, he severed the tubes on Bane's back, part of a harness designed to pump the venom chemical into his body and enhance his strength. Sickly green fluid spewed from the pipes, with Bane reaching his muscular arms behind him, fumbling with the mechanism, desperately trying to repair the device that kept his body strong. It was too late. The luchador dropped to his knees and collapsed, defeated, as Abel stood over him with his swords in hand. "You can come out now, Bat," he called up to the ceiling. "By now you have no doubt guessing that I am not here for this one. It's you they sent me to find." Never one to charge headfirst into a fight without thought, Batman dropped a smoke pellet. It burst as it made contact with the concrete floor below, filling the area around Abel with a heavy gray fog that was impossible for the warrior to see through. A trio of sharp-tipped batarangs came spinning through the air. Abel barely had a chance to see them coming in time to block them with his swords, only to be caught off guard as an attack struck him from behind. Dropping from above, Batman landed a devastating gliding kick, knocking Abel to the ground. The barbarian rolled over angered at the outmaneuver, as Batman stood casting a towering pointy-eared shadow over him. "Who are you?" Batman demanded in the deep, authoritarian voice of a grizzled veteran vigilante. "I am known by many names," the man replied, the detective taking note of his distinctive Middle Eastern accent. "You will call me Abel, the man who will be your undoing." "Tell me who sent you," the Dark Knight retorted, adding, "or else." Abel chuckled dryly before swinging one of his swords downwards. Blocking it with his gauntlets, Batman trapped the blade between the row of claws on his forearms before using them to snap the weapon in two. Just as Abel went to stab at him with his other one, the Dark Knight spun out of the way, grabbing his opponent's hand and guiding the weapon away in a smooth parry, telling of his years of martial arts training. But with both hands holding Abel's attack aloft, Batman couldn't prevent the barbarian from pulling yet another blade from his pocket dimension. With a slash from a smaller knife, Abel cleaved open the gray and black costume that the Caped Crusader wore, causing him a serious injury. Grunting in pain, Batman headbutted Abel square in the nose, causing him to reel back, still chuckling at the tenacity of his target. "Impressive," Abel mused. "The Foundation sent me here to kill you. I wasn't expecting to find such a worthy adversary. He slowly lowered his swords, while Batman kept his fists raised in a fighting stance. "I will not be their puppet. You and I are both warriors," the barbarian stated. "I'm not a killer," Batman argued. "Perhaps, but you are a fighter, and a fighting man does not deserve to be killed like a sheep at the behest of cowards and fools. You deserve a warrior's death," Abel replied. "2 hours from now, midnight, we meet atop the tallest building in this wretched city. There and then, that is when you die at my hand." With that, Abel turned and walked away. Batman thought about going after him, tackling him to the ground and restraining him, but he was still wounded. He needed time to recuperate. "I checked the records, sir. There is no mention of any metahuman with the power to create weapons on either the Argus or Star Labs databases," Alfred explained over Batman's earpiece. After a quick retreat to the cave to tend to his injury, Bruce was already racing back out into the night, careening through the streets of Gotham in the Batmobile. "What about the Foundation that Abel mentioned?" he asked Alfred. "Not much luck either there, Master Bruce," his faithful butler answered. "There is one mention of an organization called the SCP Foundation in an old Argus document, but the majority of the file has been redacted. The only reference to it is an addendum that someone must have forgotten to remove." "Good work, Alfred," Batman responded. "There's only one person in this city who might be able to give me more information." "Oh, heavens, you don't mean. Who else has a knack for knowing too much?" The cell was quiet, lit only by the low flickering of fluorescent bulbs that hung from the ceiling of Arkham Asylum. It had been hours since the guards had called for the inmates to go to bed, although they were no less alert. Any one of them could break out at any time, and there was one who'd been waiting for his chance rather patiently. "Riddle me this," Edward said aloud, aware of a figure approaching his cell. "I'm always around, but unseen. I'm often avoided, but never outrun. I could find you at the end of the road or even the next corner. What am I?" "Death," Batman answered monotonously. "To what do I owe the pleasure, Dark Knight?" the Riddler asked. "I need information," the Cape Crusader replied, "and you've got more than your fair share." "After a decade of rivalry, the detective decides to come crawling to me for answers, to offer some recognition of my brilliance." "Not brilliance, Edward. Persistence," he corrected. "You're cheery as ever." "The SCP Foundation. What do you know?" He peered over the rim of his glasses, offering Batman a wry smile. "If you know me, you'll want to share me. If you share me, I'll be gone. What am I?" he asked. "A secret." "Oh, they certainly are!" Edward exploded with laughter. "The Foundation are an odd bunch. They'd even make some of the patients here at good old Arkham seem sane by comparison. Think of them as the resident experts in unusual phenomena. Anomalies, they call them," the maniac obsessed with mind games explained. "They are everywhere, all across the world. An organization older and with more reach than any you've encountered. And oh me, oh my, the things they have locked away. Monsters that would scare even you, Batman." "How do I know this isn't one of your delusions, Riddler?" Batman barked, banging a fist against the bars to intimidate his nemesis. "Don't insult me, Dark Knight. You and I both know that you wouldn't have come to see me if you were going to disbelieve what I had to say," the Riddler yelled. "And mark my words, if the Foundation has its sights on you, well, riddle me this." Already Batman had turned and started walking away down the corridor. "My inventor doesn't want me, the man who bought me won't need me, and the man who needs me doesn't know it. What am I?" The Dark Knight paused a few feet from the cell. "A coffin." "It could all be a trick, sir," Alfred urged as Bruce departed the asylum. "Edward Nashton is hardly a reliable source of information." "He has a compulsion to always prove himself as the smartest, to always be right," Batman replied. "What I still can't understand is why this Foundation would send Abel to kill me. What's the connection between them and me?" "Perhaps, Master Bruce, it's less what connects you and more how you could be an obstacle to them," the butler reasoned. "If this Foundation are experts in unusual phenomena, then there are an abundance of such things here in Gotham. Everything from the copious supercriminals to the giant coin here in the Batcave." "And with me out of the way," Batman began to catch on. "They'd have free reign," Alfred finished the sentence. "In sending a madman to kill you, it's clear they didn't come to play fair, sir." The clock tower in the middle of Gotham let out an ominous bong, marking the approach of midnight. "Then neither will I," Batman replied. Abel had been waiting atop the roof of a skyscraper, the name Wayne Enterprises emblazoned on its front. It was almost midnight. There were minutes left, but the barbarian was still confident the bat would show. He could almost taste the adrenaline of their looming battle. Anticipating their final showdown, Abel could hardly wait to have a worthy opponent to best in combat. The sound of some kind of advanced aircraft whooshed overhead, and the barbaric warrior craned his neck upwards. Soaring above was the Batplane, set against the backdrop of the night sky with a single beam of light reaching up into the clouds, projecting the Dark Knight's insignia above, the Bat Signal. Parachuting down, Batman had donned a heavily armored battlesuit over his costume. He'd originally designed it to go toe-to-toe with Superman in case his closest ally ever went rogue, but the armor's bulkier plating would easily be more resistant to the ferocious damage Abel could dish out. He landed on the rooftop with a thud as Abel jeered in disgust.
"Coward!"
he spat.
"You are not the honorable fighter I mistook you for. Just another pretender like that luchador, giving yourself an advantage rather than relying on your skill. Are you so afraid of me that you'd encase yourself in armor? Are you afraid that you'll lose?"
Batman replied calmly. Roaring in anger, Abel charged towards Batman, pulling a fresh pair of swords from his pocket dimension. He swung the blades through the air only for them to clang off the thick plating protecting the Caped Crusader's arms as he lifted his gauntlets to block the incoming attacks. Immediately, feral, bloodthirsty rage on his face, Abel swiped again, this time directing his weapon to a tiny gap where Batman's helmet met the rest of his suit at the neck. The sword stayed lodged between the armor, only for Batman to pull back and launch a devastating punch that sent Abel staggering back.
"I built this suit to survive hits from a Kryptonian. Trust me, you won't even scratch it," Batman declared. "Give it up, Abel. Walk away. Tell the Foundation to stay out of Gotham."
Seeing red, noticing one of his weapons was still stuck at the joint in Batman's armor, Abel let out a mighty yell and ran towards his adversary. Stomping forward to clash with him head-on, Batman started moving as fast as the bulky batsuit would allow him. But moments before the pair of them collided, Abel dropped, skidding along the rooftop under Batman's legs, using the size and weight of his opponent's armor to his advantage, just like he had done with Bane earlier. Before Batman had a chance to turn around, Abel leaped onto his feet and grabbed his cape, pulling the Dark Knight over and causing his heavy armor to topple. Batman clattered down onto his back, and Abel gripped the sword that had gotten stuck. With one hand gripping the bat by his cape, the barbarian used the other to grab his weapon, trying to lever off his opponent's protective helmet. Struggling to get himself free, Batman reached for his belt, throwing a barrage of batarangs that spun through the air, only to return and strike Abel in the chest. He barely registered the impact, shrugging off the projectiles as if they were made of paper.
"You cannot win! Even if you could best me, I always come back!"
Abel grunted, feeling his sword breaking through the joint in Batman's armor.
"I am Abel. I am immortal. But underneath all your tools and tricks, you are nothing but a man. Now do what men do and die."
A sudden winding blow struck Abel square in the chest. Batman had activated the heartbeat sensors in his helmet's eyepieces and sent both his armor-plated fists rocketing upwards, connecting with the barbarian's heart. Reeling, Abel staggered back, trying to catch his breath, as Batman stood to his feet, the hulking, unmistakable silhouette towering over the immortal warrior.
"I'm not just a man,"
he growled.
"I am vengeance." Bam!
His words were punctuated by another devastating punch to the same spot.
"I am the Knight." Pow!
Once more the Dark Knight struck Abel in the heart, sending him closer to the edge of the roof.
"I am Batman."
A thundercrack rang out as Abel looked up, wheezing at his adversary.
You will not kill me, Bat,"
he rasped.
"No, I won't,"
Batman answered, leaning in close.
"You always come back."
With a final uppercut, he knocked Abel over the ledge, sending the barbarian careening down into the Gotham Reservoir below. Despite being exhausted from their encounter, Batman scoured the reservoir for any signs of Abel's remains. He couldn't find anything. There was no body, but something told the Dark Knight that the undying barbarian would be back. From a distant rooftop, a pair of Foundation operatives were watching through night vision scopes. "Well, that seemed a little excessive," one remarked to the other. "Didn't think he was the type to show off." "I don't think he was showing off," the other replied. "I think that was a warning." Now go and check out Deadpool vs. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, and SCP-073 and SCP-076, Cain vs. Abel, for more badass battles from SCP Explained.